Israel's massive attack near Damascus days ago widened Syria's raging civil war. What are the chances Iran and Hezbollah could be directly drawn into this conflict? Then there's the issue of chemical weapons. Should Western support of Assad's enemies be withdrawn if it is proven the rebels are using them against their own people? To Crosstalk Syria, I'm joined by Pepe Escobar in London. He is an investigative journalist and author. In Washington, we have Christopher Chivas. He is a senior political scientist at the RAND Corporation and an adjunct professor at Johns Hopkins University. And in New York, we cross to Jeffrey Ingersoll. He is a defense reporter with Business Insider. All right, gentlemen, crosstalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want. Pepe, if I can go to you first, it looks like there's more and more effort to inflame the conflict in Syria than resolve it. Would you agree or disagree with that?
This is just the beginning, you know. I'm tempted to start, singing a little bit, Peter. What a wonderful world this would be, according, obviously, to NATO GCC. This is what they're trying, you know. It's the same old story. The US, the Brits, and the French inside NATO. The Brits and the French are trying to convince the other NATO members that lethal weaponizing of the rebels is the way to go. The GCC, of course, those paragons of democracy, including the House of Saud, of course, which has been doing that for, in fact, over 2 years now, in the black market, via Croatia, you name it. And, of course, Israel. Israel just jumped in because the plan A, which was the lethal weaponizing of the rebels, was not working. There was this red line after red line. Everybody got lost in this Hollywood shuffle. At the same time, they noticed that the Syrian army was progressing instead of regressing in the Hama Homs corridor in Syria. So the so-called rebels, the Free Syrian Army gangs and Jabhat al-Nusra style jihadis were losing ground. And at the same time, Sheikh Nasrallah went to Iran. He had a get-together with Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. They are very tight, so an attack on each one of them is an attack on all of them. So what to do? Plan B. Call Israel, something that was already decided between Chuck Hagel and his tour of the Middle East recently, Israel and the petromonarchies. Israel does it. If there are Fateh 110 missiles struck by Israel, good for Israel. If they are not, they still deplete Syrian army arsenal, and we start all over again with Plan B. So I expect more attacks sooner rather than later.
Chris, what do you think about that? Plan B?
Well, I mean, I think that the purposes for Israel's strike were the Fateh 110 missiles. I wouldn't read into it too much more than that. After all, Israel has conducted strikes against Syria even before this war started out. Their primary concern right now is Hezbollah. Were Hezbollah to get those kinds of missiles, it would pose a significant threat to Israel's air defense system, and that's obviously not something that they can allow to happen.
Okay, Jeffrey, you want to weigh in? Plan B, as Pepe said.
I think that Iran is basically trying to use Syria as a smokescreen and all the chaos there as a smokescreen to smuggle weapons to Hezbollah. It's as simple as that. So Israel simply, took those weapons out. As far as Syria is concerned, that's a big messy sandwich, and everyone's going to have to take a bite. It's not as simple as arming rebels. We don't really know who we're arming. It's a whole lot more fractious than we think. We're not even sure that what's going to replace Assad is going to be better. Maybe a year ago, maybe. But honestly, right now, I just think that it's a mess, and it's only going to get messier.
Pepe, you want to jump in there? Talk Iran.
In fact, all of U.S. think tank land, left, right, middle, whatever, they know that Washington is selling itself the myth that the CIA is screening which weapons go to which groups. This is completely absurd. Obviously, these people have never been to Syria. They have never been to the Turkish-Syrian border, and they don't know the players. Saudi Arabia and Qatar, their agenda is not Washington's agenda. It's completely different. Qatar, they want some kind of Muslim Brotherhood-led government in Syria. And the House of Saud, they want a Wahhabi emirate, which is going to breed lots of Al-Qaeda-style types later on. Their agenda is completely different, and they are arming themselves. Sometimes it goes through Turkey. Sometimes it's screened by the CIA in southern Turkey. But we don't know who gets these weapons, you know, at the last resort. And most of these people are getting the weapons indirectly are Jabhat al-Nusra, because they have very good connections, for instance, with the tribal sheiks in Al-Anbar province in Iraq. A lot of commanders that affiliated with Jabhat al-Nusra, they're not Syrians, they're Iraqis. They were fighting the Americans in Anbar province 2004, 2005, 2006. I met some of these people at the time over there, and now they're in Syria. They are doing the back and forth across the border.
Okay, Jeffrey, you were agreeing. Go ahead.
Well, you know, I think that Iraq has a lot to do with it. Their civil war, then let's call it what it is. It's a civil war. Is spilling into Syria. Everyone's trying to get their piece of bread, get the big piece of bread here. And Pepe's right. You know, the CIA, it's the same old song and dance. They've been doing it for 40 years. They did it with the Taliban. You saw what happened there. And it's, you know, there's no excuse for it, really. And yeah, they are selling. There's a couple things that they're selling. One thing that they're selling, that they tried to sell late last year, was that the FSA was this united, you know, Western-style military, and that's anything but the case. Yeah. They're totally fractious, and they're fighting amongst each other. They're fighting Jabhat al-Nusra, and everyone's vying for power right now. So, you know, there's really only two good options here I see. One would be that we're able to keep Assad in power, and he's able to come to an agreement with the rebels in which they all get a piece of the pie, something kind of like how Lebanon's government is. And the other one is if the FSA can unite, and I just don't see that happening. And the more that we arm these guys, the worse off it's going to be. I mean, Libya is still a mess, and you saw that's spilled south into Africa. It's just a giant mess, and giving them weapons isn't going to solve anything. So I honestly, I think that's why Obama is sort of in a tough position here politically. You know, he wanted to talk tough. Every American president does. But really, what's he going to do? He's not even sure what he's going to do. And now they're sort of backpedaling because they don't really have intel on these guys. They don't really know who they are. And you can't just go, you know, dropping weapons willy-nilly. So it's really a tough situation, and Iraq is in the shadows, and I'll tell you what, if that erupts right along with Syria, which I think it's going to, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be horrific, and I don't think that there's anything that Obama, France, or Britain can really do about it other than to just let it play out.
Okay, Chris, let it play out. Interesting.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
if I can just say, I mean, I think, you know, I don't know who Pepe's been talking to. I mean, he paints an interesting picture, but it's certainly not the same people in Washington think tank circles who I've been talking to, many of whom have no illusions about the difficulties that are involved in trying to arm the opposition. It's pretty widely known that there are a lot of risks, and as he noted, there's obviously risks that arms could get into the hands of nefarious groups like Jabhat al-Nusra. Nevertheless, the fact of the matter is that, you know, and respectfully, I disagree that there's any solution in which Assad is going to remain in power. That's simply not going to happen. We need to be thinking about a post-Assad Syria that protects all of the parties involved, and that includes the Alawites. And here's where I think actually Russia has an important role to play. Russia can look beyond, you know, the crisis today and think about, you know, what role it can play constructively in the future in trying to guarantee the security of the post-Assad.
It's been trying to do that for 2 years. It's been trying to do that for 2 years. And no one wants to listen. Pepe, jump in.
Absolutely. They've been trying to do that, and the Americans have been saying no. Because Obama, you know, one of the first Obama lines is Assad had to go. Yeah. And now the Obama administration is saying, look, after 2 years, he's not going. He still has support in Damascus. The business classes in Damascus and Aleppo, there are no major defections in the Syrian army. I have to say that every day because people in America, they are not listening. 1 or 2 generals that defect after a few months, these are not major defections. They still control the army. They are fully weaponized. So it's not going to happen. The only possible solution, I agree, from the beginning, Russia was proposing that. Let's sit down at the same table, all the players, including all the regional players, and that includes Iran as well at the table. And the Americans have been saying no.
In a situation like this, it's
you can't just look beyond Assad. You have to do something to get beyond Assad.
Chris, jump in. Go ahead.
What exactly are we going to do? I mean, we're talking about beyond Assad as if it's already been written. How exactly do we do that? Because I'll tell you what,
I mean, as I
he's
said,
shown
there
recently
are-
that his military is quite capable of pushing the rebels back.
Okay, Chris.
So what do we do? Airstrikes?
Is that what we're
Let's go to
doing?
Chris first. Gentlemen, let's go to Chris.
Insurgencies like this.
Chris, go ahead.
Insurgencies like this, last for decades. There's no way that Assad could potentially hold on to power for a number of years, if the international community continues not to take any kind of action. But in the end, he's going to go. And the question is, what's going to happen then? I agree with you about that. And the reality is that we need to do everything we can to protect all sides, including the Alawites in Syria, from some kind of a major slaughter. And that's going to require a lot more international cooperation, including between Russia, the United States, and NATO, and our partners in the region than we're getting right now.
Pepe, go ahead.
Now, not only the Alawites, Christians and Kurds as well. The Kurds, they are in northeast Syria. They already have a measure of independence. So in practical terms, it's autonomy. They would love that to continue, in fact. The Christians know that if there is a Wahhabi-style Sunni hardcore post-Assad government, they are doomed. And so are the Alawites as well. So if you have everybody at the same table, include, of course, with Russia, Iran, and the Saudis, and all the GCC petromonarchies, plus the Westerners, then at least some sort of adult conversation can ensue. They're not even talking at the moment.
All right, gentlemen.